Midlife to Best Life was my business because it's like that is where now you have all this experience, life experience, career
Yeah.
experience, family, whatever experience that you can bring with you to start a new business or start a new hobby or start volunteering or whatever it is that just lights you up to make that second half of life the best half of life.
Welcome to Suburban Warrior, the podcast that will impact, inspire, and empower you to transform your mindset and become the badass warrior that you are. I'm your host and fellow warrior, Chrissy Pfeiffer, former clinician and corporate marketing exec turned multi-passionate entrepreneur, performance and life coach, and mom to 4 not-so-little warriors. Each week, I will bring you honest conversations with inspiring guests to share their stories of resilience, optimism, success, and simple yet effective strategies so that you transform your thoughts and change your behavior to get the results you want in your life. You will be empowered to take action, warrior up, and believe in you. Let's do this. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to another episode of the Suburban Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Pfeiffer, back again this week with another amazing suburban warrior here to share her story and expertise with us. And today we are getting down to business. We are going to talk all things business and, really how you can have a CEO mindset, be the CEO of your own business, and really get into it. So I'm super excited to have with us Carmen Reed Gilkison. She is an online business manager, a whole person certified coach with over 25 years of marketing experience, and the co-founder of Encore Empire. Carmen and her business partner, Deirdre Harter, teach their clients the business of business through their year-long coaching programs, working to help ambitious women scale their service-based businesses without all the guesswork. The Encore Empire programs not only focus on optimizing your online presence, sales, marketing, productivity, mindset, and systems, they do so while teaching clients how to step into the role of CEO. Carmen understands that making sales is just the beginning and that focusing on strategy is the real key to building sustainable profitability. Welcome to the podcast, Carmen.
Thanks so much, Chrissy. I'm super excited to be here and have a great conversation today.
Me too. Me too. I have a feeling we're going to learn a lot today. So I'm really excited to get into it and hear more about Encore Empire. But first, my listeners really want to know about you, about your background, how you got to where you are. So tell us your story.
Well, I'm going to start by saying that I was always a rebel. So I was so much of a rebel that I dropped out of high school. I followed my intuition. I did my thing. I've never been a slacker, but I never fit into the mold. And so I love to share that because if someone else is out there who doesn't fit in the mold and they hear people who are like, well, I have a degree, I have this, I have that. And they think, well, of course, that's how you get successful. Well, you don't have to. There's so many paths to success. And so what I did was followed my intuition, got into what drove me. And in the early days back then, it was kind of, let's see what's going to drive me. It took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to be. I was one of those kids in high school that was like, I don't know how anyone figures out what their major in college is going to be or anything, because I wanted to do so many things. So through the years, I got into the construction industry, and that was a really great industry for me. It was a male-dominated industry, and I learned a lot about standing up for myself, about being assertive, which wasn't really a problem, but that kind of polished off that expertise. I became a single mom at a certain point, and through that, I really started feeling the pinch of, again, societal trappings. Like, you have to be in this box, you have to be in corporate, you have to do this. And I had to actually, my corporate job was excellent. I had benefits and all of that, and I needed that as a single mom. So I leaned into it, and I rose up the corporate ladder, starting from a receptionist at a construction company through the years to the senior bid administrator and runner. I used to run the entire proposal department. And so that was middle management. So go from, not very much money. I remember, I think when I started out way back when it was like $9 an hour to, in the six figures at the end.
Yeah.
And so all of that happened because of my drive and from listening to what I wanted. And always in the back of my mind, I thought, this is great. I wish I could do it on my terms. I always wanted to do it on my terms. And so then when I got to be 50, I'm 60 now. So when I hit 50, I kind of hit that midlife wall. And it was kind of like, is this all there is? And then immediately I felt guilty for thinking that because it's like, well, I've got a house, a white picket fence. My daughter is a productive member of society. I'm married. I've got dogs. I've got everything I could want. My career's awesome. But all I could see down the path by staying where I was kind of like a dead end. It was like, am I going to just sit here and kind of ride life out until I die? That's what it seemed like. That seemed very stark, but I wanted to do something different. And it was also, it coincided with the time that my daughter moved out. And so if someone's not an empty nester yet, you will learn that all of your stuff in your entire life was focused on this one or two or three or however many kids you have, people. And suddenly you have all this time and you're like, holy moly, what? You realize exactly how much time you put into raising your child. So, but I really thought, okay, it's time for me now. I put everyone else first for so long. It's time for me. And I want to figure out, again, I was 50 and I thought, I don't want to retire in corporate. I want to start my own business. So I started a business on the side and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Still hadn't figured out what I want to be when I grew up. But I started helping local brick and mortar business owners with social media marketing. I was in marketing in my career. I understood it. And back then, that was when Amazon was getting big on the scene. And these local businesses, we were all worried about the local businesses. They hadn't really ventured into online, not all of them, because they hadn't had to at that point.
Right.
And so I understood it. I learned it. I went and helped them. And I started realizing that what I wanted to help them with, they didn't really want to learn. So they didn't want to learn social media marketing. They wanted someone else to do it for them. And I didn't want to have an agency. So roundabout, I did all these different things, became a whole person certified coach, because what I realized when I was working with them was they had a mindset issue and I didn't know how to deal with a mindset issue. I could teach someone step 1, 2, 3.
I do.
Yeah. How to do something. I can teach you how to do something, but I was like, man, this mindset thing keeps coming up. How am I going to get past that?
Yeah.
And so I went and got my whole person certified coaching license. And that just opened up the doors because then I understood how much of business and success in life is mindset related. Yes. And so that's kind of where I was then. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my God. First of all, I love that. Love, love, love. But there's so many things that you said that I want to kind of just touch on and go back to, because first of all, I love the fact that you told us that you didn't graduate high school. You felt like you were a bit of a rebel because, there are so many paths to success, like you said. And back, however many years ago, it was like, there was a lot of people I know, like in my mom's generation, right? I mean, I'm 49, so we're not that different apart, but my mom's generation, not everybody went to college, right? And then sort of my generation, more and more people were going to college, but still a lot of people didn't, graduated from high school and, more trade schools, did different things, just figured out different paths, right? Nowadays, we sort of are in this like, oh yes, there's many more people going to college. But we're also in this really amazing place where there are people making tons of money on social media platforms and online businesses. And you don't need that college degree like we had thought, for so long. So I just think it's a really interesting comment to say that there are many paths to success. And I also think it's important because a lot of people don't realize that, like, oh, if I don't have a degree in this, or if I'm not like, have a certification, or I'm not an expert, then, you don't always have, sometimes you're naturally an expert in things, right? And then you do your personal development and you take the classes, but you don't have to necessarily have a college degree in something to be good at something else,
That's right.
Yeah, I love what you said about that. And then I also want to touch on the point that you made about 50 hit and you were like, is this it? Because as a coach, a mindset coach for a lot of women that are in midlife, I hear this all the time. And it's like, is this it for me? And it's not that they're not happy. It's not like there's not so much to be grateful for and joyful in their lives, but there's what I like to kind of call that midlife whisper. I feel
Mhm.
like that it starts as that inner voice, and it really is your intuition. It's our higher power, our higher self talking to us saying, is there more? What does this look like? What do I want to do? So I think it's so powerful and important that you brought that up, because it's a whisper that we don't all listen to, but I think over time it does start to get louder and louder. And I love that you brought that up, because it is something that I think we all sort of not all, but many of us experience, and I think it's important to listen to and think about acting on as you did, because it's there for a reason.
Well, I used to help women in midlife as well. That was one of the things that I did for a while. And, people call it a midlife crisis. And I look at midlife as a gift for that
Yes.
very reason, because I
Yes.
think it's us coming back to ourselves. And I think a lot of, in general, in life in general, and in business in general, I think a lot of angst and anxiety and stress comes from us comparing ourselves with what we see in the world, instead of turning the focus inward to listen to what really matters to us, what means the most to us, what do we want to create with the rest of our lives. I mean, I don't care what age you are, you have the rest of your life, whatever,
Right.
however long that is. And we are always the oldest that we've ever been. So I think we think that, or it's easier to think, especially as you get older, that this is it, or I'm coming to near the end. And obviously, chronologically, yes, we only have a certain amount of time we're going to live. But my gosh, if we fall into that thinking, well, then you're just giving up, and then you're not living life. You can get the best of life. And I used to say midlife to best life was my business, because it's like that is where now you have all this experience, life experience, career
Yeah.
experience, family, whatever experience that you can bring with you to start a new business or start a new hobby or start volunteering or whatever it is that just lights you up to make that second half of life the best half of life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I love what you said. It's the time that we come back to ourselves, because it
Yeah.
really is. Once, our kids start leaving the home, and we have so much more wisdom and knowledge of who we are. So it really gives us that time. Okay. So this is amazing. So then you started your own business. Is that when you were 50? So is that when Encore Empire started?
No, so that
Okay.
business went for a while. My iterations, my journey went for a while. It was all a side hustle up for a long time. And then in 2020 is when I met my business partner, Deirdre Harter. So Deirdre is a CPA. So she went to college. She has the degree. And so the whole time that I was working with midlife women and when I was working with brick and mortar business owners, I really loved the business side of things. I loved it in corporate too. I was very good at it. It was part of what I had to do there. But I kind of had that imposter syndrome, right? I didn't have a
Yeah.
degree. I don't have all this. But when I met Deirdre, she had the same vision. We met at an online conference in April of 2020. And it was amazing how when we started talking, our vision for midlife women, that's who we focus on, was the same. We wanted people and women especially to know that you can step into your power. And so when we combined our areas of expertise, she's a CPA, so she has, worked with and audited businesses of all sizes. So she can look at a business and say what's working, what's not, just from looking at the financial side of it. Then you
Wow.
bring the whole person certified coach part into it. And then eventually I got my online business manager certification as well. And we combine all of that, and really, it helps us see and provide a holistic approach to building a business. So that's where Encore Empire it was born. We were like, man, we have something here. We weren't sure what we wanted to do. Neither of us was looking for a business partner, and we ran into these things where you have to worry because we didn't know each other that well, right? So I didn't want
Sure.
her writing my coattails, and she didn't want me writing hers, and so we had to kind of step carefully, tread lightly through that. And so we decided to start a joint venture and run a live workshop and see how that would go. And we would sell into this program that we had outlined, but we hadn't built yet. And so we did that and we sold into it. And then we were like, oh my gosh, this is great. And we did it again. We sold into it. So then eventually Encore Empire was born in February of 2021.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
Encore Empire itself hasn't been around that long, but Deirdre and I both have business wise. And
Yeah.
we called it Encore Empire because it's the encore of your life. It's the best. You're
Yeah.
bringing the best of your life. And then Empire, it's something that you control. You can create. It doesn't have to be a multi-million dollar empire. It can be whatever you want it, but it's your empire. So
Yeah.
that's
I
how
love
that
that.
happened.
Yeah. I love that. I love the name. I love the thought behind it. It's really incredible. So, okay. So tell us about a little bit about Encore Empire and sort of what you do. So, what sort of businesses do you help? Is it women that are just starting? Is it women that have already started? Like you said, and you're looking at the books and you're seeing like, growth and getting them to the next level. Obviously, it's women mostly in midlife, but what
Yeah.
is your area of expertise?
So it's typically business to business service providers. And we have worked with people who are just starting out to people who have been in business for 30 years. And usually when people come to us, it's because something's not working in their business, right? It either it was working and it stopped. And so our approach is we really like to say we teach the business of business, which is having people understand how to read their profit and loss statement, what it is, how to collect and read data to make informed decisions. And that's kind of more the left brain stuff. But then we also get into values in business and validation and mindset, because it's so much of it, of business and success in life in general, is mindset. And so we dive deep into that. And it's a holistic approach so that when our ladies come, we have a year-long program. And what that allows us to do is allows us to set up, identify what their goal is for this year. What is their dream? What's the goal for this year? And then we have them future cast, a few years out, 5 years out. What does it look like? What will you need? And so we look at that, we reverse engineer it, and we say, okay, well, what's going on now? What's working? What's not? And we tailor our plan to every single one of our clients. We're very high touch. We believe in access to the experts. So everyone has access to Deirdre and I all the time. Whereas a lot of programs that we've taken, even high ticket ones, you don't have access to the
Right.
person, that the name on the company, right? So
Yeah.
we believe in that. And what our goal is that they come in and they understand the business of business. They create their foundational business strategy so that when they leave, they're able to assess opportunities. Should I do this thing? Should I not? A lot of times, knowing what not to pursue is more important than knowing what to pursue. So, in order to do that, you have to really know your business. You have to feel comfortable. We like to say that, when you start a business, you're a default CEO. Well, a default CEO, there's a lot that means. It means you're entitled you're CEO, but you don't know necessarily how to be a CEO. So we like to take you from default CEO to empowered CEO so that you can feel comfortable. The CEO doesn't necessarily do everything in the business. Now, a solopreneur does, or they hire people out. So we want to get familiar with everything in the business so that you at least know how to hire the right people for the areas that you need help in, so
Yeah.
that you feel comfortable looking at your profit and loss statement and you understand the data to make data-driven decisions for growth. And then we also, again, address the mindset so that CEO, you can step into that role confidently.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. What is a CEO mindset?
So the CEO mindset is where we step into the role of CEO, and CEOs don't guess, right? They plan, they review, and they look at the data to help them make growth decisions, which is what I just mentioned. And they're
Yeah.
able to view the business from different vantage points. So if we think about someone who's going to launch something, a new offer, let's say, and it doesn't go well. And it's very easy to fall into imposter syndrome and think, oh my gosh, it was me. I did something wrong. They don't like me. It's not working. Oh, I'm going to go try something else. Well, the CEO doesn't throw everything out. They look at what happened and they say, okay, let's look at this. What parts worked? What parts didn't? Let's fix what didn't. Let's give it another run. We like to say, run things 6 times or for 6 months so that you get an accurate read on what's going on before you make a change. So one of the things we like to look at business through 3 different phases: startup, fix up, and grow up. And we
Okay.
immediately teach all of our clients to set aside CEO time every week, because you have to have the time to sit and plan for your business activities, annual quarterly, weekly, monthly, all of that. You need to know what's happening. It can't just get into, and it's very easy to do this, is to get into the busyness of business and not be doing things that are actually moving the needle forward. So setting aside that CEO time, learning the business of business, switching from employee mindset to CEO mindset, and starting to track metrics. So we want to talk about leading and lagging metrics. A lot of times we talk about, a leading metric is, well, I'm going to send an email every week to my list, or I'm going to post 3 times on social media, or I'm going to run a workshop every 6 weeks. Those are leading metrics. Those are the things we're going to do. But a lot of times people don't stop and look back at the lagging metrics. Well, what happened when you sent that email for that last quarter, month, 6 months, whatever? We have to look at what happened too. And so we teach them all of that because that's what's missing. So many people plan. We hear about planning all the time. Productivity, let's do this. How can we be more efficient? Well, we can't be more efficient if we're forgetting to look at how things happened when we did them last time. Because part of efficiency is learning how to then tweak and make things work better in the future. So CEO mindset is all about being the steward of your business. Because if you think about it, even though our businesses are our babies, and we like to think we are our business, really, we are the steward of our business. It's our responsibility as a CEO to ensure the business has what it needs to grow and function and be successful. And so that's what we help women understand, is how to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's really so much great information there. So it also sounds like, so you started out and you did a lot of online stuff. You helped from back in the day with brick and mortars, trying to get them online. And, I think especially people in midlife, like people around our age, the whole online thing can feel very overwhelming, right? Online, social media. I mean, it's definitely, we're learning more and more, but I know even just for me, I learn a lot always about how to do things online. But every time I'm trying something new, it is like literally climbing up a hill. Whereas my kids jump on their phones and they're like, do, 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 and they just like figure stuff out in like no time. So what strategies can be used to sort of like grab the ideal prospect's attention online? If you already have a business and you're trying to capture the attention, so you stop the scroll, like what are some strategies that people can use to kind of really attract the ideal prospects?
Yeah, the good news for the answer to this is that it doesn't have to do with tech. It has to do with good old fashioned understanding who your ideal audience is. So
Okay.
a lot
Love
of what we
that.
talk about, we teach people market research, and that sounds boring and dry and whatever, but that is like the gold mine right there. When you
Yeah.
can start getting into conversations with either you have clients already, so you're already doing it, or your ideal clients, whether it's your current business, you're going to pivot, you're going to have a new launch, you have a new idea for a new product. We want to find out, well, what matters most to that ideal client in relation to that topic. And when we can use, and so we teach our clients and help them create an ideal client language bank. And so basically what you want to do is when you're on social media or when you're in a in-person networking event, it doesn't have to only be online. You start asking questions. You're always curious about other people. And when you craft your posts in a way that, like if you're starting something about a lead magnet, let's just say, and so you're going to do a post, it's like, you could ask questions. What do you struggle with most around lead magnets? And then you could do a poll, you could give them options, or you could just leave it free form and see what people say. So you're collecting data, but you're collecting it in their exact words. And then you need to do this for a while. It becomes part of your business. And I'll tell you, it's not just someone brand new in business. This is, as long as you want to have a business, you need to be doing this.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, with all the things going on in the world and all the things going on in people's lives, someone could have answered a question that you asked last year, and the answer to the same question this year is going to be probably different because things are affecting them differently. And that's what we're trying to do, is keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on with our ideal client, and then be able to use their words in our marketing. So in the example of this post, if you ask them what are they struggling with most to create a lead magnet, you find out that it is coming up with the thing that they think will be attractive to their audience. Well, it's like, well, okay, that's lead magnet ideas. That's lead magnet creation, whatever it is. So then you say, you use their words. Do you feel like it's difficult to come up with the right lead magnet that's going to attract your ideal client? So you're just taking their words and you use it directly in your marketing. That is the best way to stop the scroll, because then anyone who feels the same, and the more you do it, the more you'll get honed in on who your ideal client is. And so what you're putting out there attracts more of those people, right? And that's how you stop the scroll, because they're like, oh my gosh, that's exactly how I feel. It's like she's reading my mind. And it's because that person is also an ideal client.
Yeah, that's really smart. It really is, right? I mean, it makes so much sense because it's just about speaking their language. So if you know their language and you're using it to speak back to them and engage them and, hopefully provide good information back for them, that's really, really enlightening and really great insight. Okay, so then how about, I know you touched on, like you mentioned values and validation and how important that is in business. And I know for me, I think, for me, like I always make like a values list.
Mhm.
Every year I try to like sort of, go back to it and make sure that I'm still aligned with my values in my business. So, how can we use values in business? How important is that?
It's so critically important. That's one of the first exercises we have our clients do. That's what Deirdre and I did when we formed Encore Empire separately. And then for the company, we wanted to figure out what are the company values. And the reason is because when I was starting out back in the day, I never thought about my values. And so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, remember? And so I tried on all these things. Well, one of the
Right.
things I tried on, and I was doing this, I had a high pressure career and I'm doing this on the side. And I found this program that they would build your website for you. You follow their program. They had an online learning thing that you didn't have to do anything with. Kind of sounds too good to be true. And it was, because when I got into it, it felt like I was wearing someone else's coat. It did not fit me. It wasn't me. So I tried so hard to make that system work. And I saw other people who were making it work. And it's like, man, what is wrong with me? Finally, it dawned on me it's because it doesn't align with my values. I had to
Yeah.
stop and go, wait a minute, what matters most to you? And I had to identify my values. And so once I did that, I realized that it was totally out of alignment. But unless we stop and think about that, we don't realize it's very possible to build a business that does not fit you, that does not suit you, that you end up creating just another job.
Yeah.
And we don't want people to do that. So values are so critically important. And I love that you have your annual ritual of that, because that too is very important.
Yeah, and it's really just like a values assessment,
Hmm.
that I do with myself because obviously things change, right? Things change in
Yeah.
our life. We change, we grow, we know more. When you know more, you try to do better. So it's really just a values assessment, and it's really nothing very in depth. It's about taking time to just intentionally focus on, what are my values? Have they changed? And write them down because obviously, everything that is going to become concrete and that's critical, you have to write down. So it's really just creating that values assessment list for myself and reviewing what I have done in the past. And for me, I think it's really critical because it just either I switch things out or it solidifies that, yes, I'm moving in the right direction. And it's really not just for me, it's not just business related. It's sort of, everything in my life,
Yeah.
making sure that my values are aligned in my family life and my, my love life, my friendships, my business, because obviously, as you know, as a whole person coach, everything has to be, really fit together and feel good. And there are many times when it doesn't, feel like it's all
Yeah.
working, and that's when you sort of just go back to your values and say, okay, but I am still in line with my core values. And while this might feel a little off right now, or I might be heavily here versus here in my life, I feel like I'm still aligned with my core values. So it kind of feels like you're still on the right track, kind of thing. Or the opposite, feels like you're not.
Yeah. Well, and it's important. That's a really great point you bring up, because then okay, I'm just going through a rough patch. And
Right.
sometimes it's like, well, let's just let this play out. Depending on how ambitious you are, I think most women are super ambitious. We want to try to change things and make them. And we definitely have the power to do that. But sometimes if we're going through a rough patch or we're changing and we're not sure, you're at a crossroads, sometimes it's good to just let go and say, I'll be fine. I'm going to just ride through this rough patch and see what happens on the other side, and
Right.
knowing that you're aligned with your values allows you to feel comfortable doing that.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. And so then let's talk a little bit about validation. Why is validation so important in business success?
Because it's very easy, especially with new entrepreneurs, to get excited about something that you want to bring to the world. We're here to help. We know we have something great, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the perfect thing. I'm going to create it and then I'm going to launch it. And what happens most of the time is it gets launched to crickets because it was created in the background without including the validation of your ideal client. So that's
Mm,
another reason why, if we replace the term market research with just being in conversation with who your ideal client is or your target audience, that validates what you're doing. And in the example I gave before about, a lead magnet program, you ask a question and then you take those answers, you take the ideal client language and you start promoting, hey, if I'm thinking about creating this program, here's what I want to include. What do you think? And if people are like, oh my gosh, yes, that's great. So that's one form of validation. Another form is to do what Deirdre and I did in the beginning of Encore Empire, which was to run a workshop and sell into a program that was not yet created. Now we knew we had the framework for the program, but the reason we didn't create it first was just this very reason. We wanted women to go through it with us and help us build it. So we had like the first module built, they went through, and you learn so much when you're working with the people that you want to serve. And
yeah.
that validates what it is that they need. It validates what you're doing. So essentially, our program has been built over the years now with all the women have gone through it because we take what we hear that is most common, that is sticking point, and we tweak our program, we add to it, we adjust it, we do whatever. And it's like you're in creation with your audience instead of in a vacuum. And so
Yeah.
that eliminates that whole launching to crickets because you are getting the validation. And sometimes it doesn't matter how good your intentions are, how good you are, how great the promotion is or the program, even if you validate, you can still have a failed launch. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. It's something that you just then look at it. And that's why we say, run something 6 times or for 6 months so you can get accurate data. Because let's say historically, I know that in the summer months, the online space gets a little bit quieter.
Yeah.
So it's harder to sometimes to sell things. It's harder to get people to be on a workshop or something online when they'd rather be out in the sunshine enjoying the day, which they should. So
Yeah.
you have to have that experience and time behind you and run it enough times to get an accurate read. Because if you tried to run something in the summer for the first time, and it didn't work very well for you, you could think it's 1,000 different reasons why. And it's disheartening and you don't know. But when you go, okay, I'm not sure what it is. I'm going to tweak this and I'm going to run it another time. And then you start seeing, oh, it looks like, and this happened to us actually, so this story, it looks like summertime is slower. So now we
Yeah.
know summertime's slower. So we do a lot of different things, things that don't require as much time, things that don't require people to stay in front of a computer screen. So there are ways to optimize for the things that you discover, but you have to discover them first. And that requires putting in the time and getting that validation.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, I think that's all such great advice and makes so much sense, right? It's really about asking your target audience what their needs are so that then you can really help to fulfill their needs and create a successful business.
Yeah, and they tell you, which is the other great part. You don't have to come up with something.
Yeah.
Because one other thing really quick that happens with us
Yeah.
when we're the experts, we're farther along than they are, and we
Yeah.
forget what it's like. That's another real good reason to stay in touch with them and be, have your finger on the pulse of what matters most to them. Because there are so many times I can't even tell you where I've been in a conversation. It's like, oh my gosh, I remember when I felt like that, but I
Yeah.
don't feel like that anymore. So it's not going to come up unless I'm in conversation. So it's really important.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really great point for business owners because I know that happens to me a lot too, where, I just think a certain way. Obviously, like, my whole everything is about personal development and mindset. And so when I think a certain way, or I'm saying things, and I'll just say something that, for me is like part of my vocabulary or part of how I think and work. And to someone else, they're like, oh, wow. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, I think it is really important. That's a great point that like it's like a ladder, right? And everybody is
Yeah.
not as far along the ladder. Not to say that they won't get there, but some of us are just further, just like there's people ahead of me and people ahead of you, and we're still
Yes.
working, up the ladder. So I think that was a really, really great point to make. Well, Carmen, you are amazing. I loved hearing all of your expertise and hearing your story. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Tell my listeners where they can find you.
Yeah. Our website is the best place to go. It's encoreempire.com. And we've got a special link for your listeners to our free marketing methodology workshop where you can ditch the marketing overwhelm and spend your precious time growing your business.
I love
And they
it.
can do that by going to encoreempire.com/warrior.
Oh, awesome. Well, that is very generous and very exciting. So, guys, if you're listening now, I would absolutely take advantage of that because, Carmen, you are a wealth of knowledge. You have amazing experience. And I'm so grateful that you were able to share some of that with us today. So, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, don't forget to check that out and to take advantage of that free workshop. And you can find me at Suburban Warrior on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And please leave us a review. Let us know what you thought of the podcast. We would love to hear from you. So thanks so much for listening. And I'll be back next week with another amazing Suburban Warrior here to share her story with you guys. In the meantime, have an awesome week. Talk to you soon.